Hi,
Yay!
you did
When you
it.
said, "Is everyone having how's today going?" I'm thinking I'm in like some technological nightmare today.
Well, I invited I there was like a rescue that requested to join the video, and like I kept waiting for you to request, and I was like, oh my God, maybe Patty's having trouble joining from best friend's animal rescue account. Maybe she's on this other random account. So I hit accept, and then I kind of panicked when the both of you showed up. And I thought, you know what? Let's just do this again. Let's do this. Let's
Well,
start
I am so
start
glad
fresh.
you did
Um,
because yeah, all of a sudden my ring light just
yes.
stopped working, and and I was like, okay,
Uh,
well I'm gonna need a candle or something because I'm now
yeah.
a little
Just some nice
glow.
candlelight, like a
Get under the
jack-o'-lantern lit up
chin.
face. Yeah.
Well,
I love
thank you
it.
for having me
I love
on,
it.
Dr.
Um,
Monica.
yeah, well, I'm excited to have you
Me
on. I've been looking forward
too.
to this since we last chatted, honestly. Yeah. Do you mind, Patty, do you mind telling my audience a little bit about Best Friends? Because you guys explained it so well when we chatted. And I know a lot of people, maybe even on the East Coast, I know you guys are largely located on the West Coast, um, might not be entirely familiar, but we'd love to just have you tell us a little bit
Oh,
about Best
absolutely. So Best
Friends,
Friends
if that's
started
okay.
with about
Yeah.
26 friends who got together to try and make a difference for animals. And they set up a sanctuary in Kanab, Utah, which is the southernmost part of Utah. And absolutely beautiful, 3,800 acres of gorgeous red rocks and cliffs, and built a sanctuary that is about 1,600 animals. Our big driver is to, right now, we're very focused on saving cats and dogs in our America's shelters. But we have at the sanctuary about 11 species of animals. And we have like thousands of
Amazing.
volunteers and people come to visit. A lot of people call it their mecca. They come and get rejuvenated. They get to meet the animals and play with them and volunteer. It's really a wonderful experience. And then very quickly
I
we
love it.
transitioned from Best Friends Animal Sanctuary to Animal Society, because we realized, really at the cornerstone of our operation is that there's no way we can do any of this by ourselves. So
Right.
we are
Right.
we incorporated our work into many different communities across the United States. We have program cities, places where we have brick and mortar, structures. We have staff there and working and integrating with about 400 shelters, and we have about 4,000 network partners
Wow.
across the United States. But our program cities
It's
are
amazing.
Los Angeles, Salt Lake, New York, Houston, Atlanta, and we built a proof of concept shelter in Bentonville, Arkansas, which is more of a pet resource center trying to help engage the community into life-saving work because
Yeah.
it's a community drive, right? So
Absolutely.
anyway,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. It takes a
No,
village.
you're fine. Thanks for
Sorry.
asking about us. We're going to be turning 40
Yeah.
soon, which is amazing. So,
That's
isn't it?
crazy. That is so
And
long to
and the
have been helping
and I
animals.
like
Yeah, that's
to I like
amazing.
to just point out that these founders that got together, they really, I come from New Orleans, born and raised, was in animal welfare there, and really cut my teeth in animal welfare. And you don't realize until you work across uh, different groups and try to coalesce, your efforts. So, I always said, everybody's got a nickel, but together we got a dollar, right? Like we can make stuff happen.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is amazing that these guys stuck together and created what is, a very beloved sanctuary and a a huge program for saving lives, because they had to decide amongst themselves, like, how do we do this and stay together? Because
Right.
you can watch,
Right.
people will fight over anything apparently lately. Right? How
Oh
the
yeah.
animals are
No,
cared for,
I
how the
know.
money's
I know.
spent. So for them
Yeah.
to really lift
Yeah.
this was a tremendous project. So I feel very grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah. I was super excited to learn about it and really impressed with how big you guys have gotten and how many animals you guys help every single year. And to think you guys have been just, doing that for 40 years. And I know it starts off super small, like everything does, but I think that's amazing. And I loved meeting
Ash is
Ash, you and
amazing.
Ash the other day and
Yeah.
talking to you guys
And
about,
we always call the
yeah, she's
sanctuaries
awesome.
a home between
About how,
homes. We're not interested. I mean, if you need to stay and your right person hasn't come along, that's fine. You stay. We make sure you have a full and enriched life. But our goal is basically to get you moved on to a home so we can bring more animals who are in danger or facing, some specific challenges, like emotional or health challenges that can, kind of
yeah,
take the weight off of the humane org. And I think we were telling you there's a lot of times where we'll make trades, if you've got an animal that really
right,
has some specific challenges, and hey, we've got these kittens, you
right.
take those and go find a home, and we'll take the
Yeah,
the one that's really, going to be a
yeah,
hard burn on your organization's resources.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's really great. And we talked about how it's, how important it is to have an exit plan with like rescues. And it sounds like
Yeah.
you guys had this amazing way of navigating exit plans
Yeah,
for
because
these
we want to
pets
keep
to
them
go into
moving.
homes and
Yeah, we
yeah,
want you to be in a home.
right,
There's no place
right,
like home, right?
right.
But
Yeah,
Dr.
I
Monica,
agree.
I was
I love it.
also very
Yeah,
impressed with the work that you've been doing, especially when it comes to just all your thoughtfulness around not just the animal aspect and alleviating suffering, but how entwined the care of people comes into this work that we do, this life that I like to say it's mission driven, because it's just we're all very
oh yeah,
passionate about animals, and we realize that we have to care for the people too, and there's a lot of anxiety around this time of year.
yeah, no, absolutely. And we talked about how Dr. Lisa Littman and Dr. Katie Lawler and I formed Pet Loss Community because certainly around the holidays, one of the biggest fears and the thing that kind of comes up a lot for people during this time is this fear of losing a pet. And oftentimes it can be a pet that has a terminally ill, is terminally ill, has that diagnosis, or it could just be an older pet that you're like watching age right before your eyes. They're getting a gray muzzle, they're coming up with more lumps and bumps. When you go to the vet, they're calling them a
I know. Oh,
senior.
that just
And so
to me that's jarring. It's like it's time for your senior
I
pet.
know
Well,
because
wait, what?
you're like, he still runs like he's a puppy. He's not a senior. Yeah, I know. And it's different for cats and dogs and certainly different for dogs of different sizes because their size certainly impacts how long they live. But you'll find a lot of places calling dogs
Yes.
seniors by age 7. And we look at 7-year-old dogs and we're just like, what do you mean? He's a puppy. He's great. He's only 7. But they certainly are in more advanced age. And we always talk about, like, when we talk about
Mhm.
age, there's two ways to think about it. There's chronological age, which is like, the actual age of a pet. So I have a 15-year-old Chinese crested powder puff. He's 15 years old. That is his chronological age. But then I know he's a wreck. I'll show you guys a picture of him in a second. He's sleeping over here. I don't know. Let me see.
Aw,
He's on that little
that
ottoman there.
poof.
It's just like that little white thing on the ottoman over there. That little poof, that's him. He needs a bath really badly. But so we talk about chronological age, and I could say Orwell's a 15-year-old dog. But then we don't really think about what that means biologically for a pet. So biological age is the age that we're really concerned about. So if you think about it, you can have a 10-year-old human kid, right? And that kid is 10 years old. And then you look at a 10-year-old dog, and they're both chronologically 10 years
Yeah.
old, but biologically, that 10-year-old dog has way more years added onto it than that 10-year-old kid, right? And so that's a difference in their biological age. So really biological age is what you kind of want to focus on. So not to you know continue to rant about this, but it's really interesting because that really is the age that you want to focus. We don't really have a great way of measuring it. So right now, currently, what we do is we just say, okay, well, we know most
Right.
dogs will just have to pick an age. 7 years old is a age where you start to see some things starting to change in a lot of dogs. So, and I saw a comment here. Roxanne Desbergna says, my girl is going to be 16 in December. She has a
What?
pacemaker.
I've never
Oh my
heard of
goodness.
that.
That is huge. Yeah, they can certainly, that's it. Not a lot of people will
Hmm.
because it certainly is an investment to do that, but certainly some dogs need it
That
and they
is
do well with it.
amazing.
Roxanne, that's amazing. We want to know more about this girl. Um, but yeah, so then when you get 16-year-olds, you start, being like, well, how old is
Right.
he in dog
And
years?
also, I mean, it's just
He's
like
probably
people. I mean, you have genetics, you have environmental factors, you have stressors, you don't know, I mean, all those things can level up into your age.
absolutely
And this is the same with people,
right.
you try to do the best you can with each one of those sectors. I guess the one you have the least control over is genetics, as a person.
Yeah.
But with animals,
Yeah.
you don't know. A lot of times in the world we live in, we don't know the history.
Right.
It,
Right. And you're guessing their age based off of what you see, right? Their teeth, the way they walk,
I
the way
always
they
say
look, their
cleaning
physical
teeth
exam.
is the ultimate in
Yeah. No,
turning back
absolutely.
the odometer. You're
Right.
like, all
Right.
right, well, maybe now they look
Yeah.
nice and healthy and strong. Maybe you're younger than I thought you were. You might have just had a crappy diet. I don't know, or the space in your teeth is
Yeah.
different than would allow for them to clean, keep clean. And yeah, sometimes I'm very surprised by doing a dental, and it's like, wow, your teeth are in great shape. They're just getting funky, you
Yeah. No,
know
absolutely.
but I just had an aha.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh,
I know
yeah.
anticipatory grief is um, one of the subjects we wanted to talk about today. And as I'm
Yeah.
going to call it a
Yeah.
pet parent, because we all grapple with, companion ownership. I always had like a about I'm his owner, you know, even though there's nothing wrong with saying that, but I've just been playing with it. And I'm
Yeah.
the pet parent to a horse, actually to four horses. And I call them the four horses of the food apocalypse because, horses are never like, no, I'm full, thanks. But I have one that just
Yeah.
got diagnosed
Yeah.
with Cushing's. And the reason I bring this up is, we get into anticipatory grief of, my pet's getting to be 15, 16, 20. Like we know at some point something's going to give. And how are we reconciling that? One thing that cropped up for me
Yeah.
after doing this work all this time was anticipatory guilt. And her Cushing's diagnosis is not necessarily a death sentence because her feet are still good, and we are at a place where we can, use meds and diet. But I have anticipatory guilt, and that is, maybe I didn't think of this ahead of time. Maybe I I didn't exercise her enough. Maybe, I got her the best supplements ever. And then the first thing that I read is take them off all supplements. You're killing your horse with the supplements. It's like, so I know that our fellow
Yeah.
pet parents here online right now, I would be interested, like in your viewpoint, Dr. Monica, is that a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it is because I really think that I think grief and guilt are so closely tied together. Like I rarely experience one without the other. You know, it's always like, I wish I could have done this differently, or what if I had done this? Every single time that I'm experiencing grief or um, with pets, whether it's after I've lost a pet or before you lose one and you're fearful of it, there's always this guilt, like, well, what if, you know, what if I had done this differently? And I think that's really common, Patty. And I think you said it so well. I love that you called it anticipatory guilt. I'll have to
I
ask
know.
Dr. Lawler if that's an actual term or not, but I really believe that it should be because it's so common. Also, I just want to tell Fanny Garcia photo, they bought us a badge. Thank you so much, by the way. We appreciate that. If I ever get to meet Patty in person, which I hope I do, we'll have to take you to coffee. Take you. That's what we do. Badges are for, you know, getting to treat someone. But yeah, no, Patty, that's a really great question. Anticipatory guilt question is a really good one. And I think that's common. We often feel that when we've made big decisions for pets, if they don't go
Right.
well, or if, you know, we've taken that chance and they don't go well. And that's a really common thing as a veterinarian. And when I talk to most of my fellow doctors about it, you know, if we have a case that didn't go well, there's extreme amount of guilt, even if we did everything that we could, if we put all of our best foot forward and we think, you know, we ask those questions, we kind of torture ourselves. What if another doctor had that patient? You know, would it have gone better? So I think in every like way that you look around it, there's guilt when it comes to things that you're grieving over.
Too, we get,
and they certainly,
you know, we get to a place of, why didn't I know that? Like you only know what you knew at the time, and science is constantly evolving and making new discoveries, you know, where, you know, there's a little bit of regret of, if only, you know, 10 years ago they knew what we know now, and giving yourself a little bit of grace and slack for only knowing what you knew at the time.
Yeah, we do the best that we can with the knowledge that we have at that moment. So it's so easy. Like one of the things that you have to remind yourself is that, like, 2020, when you're looking back on a problem and you're seeing it from the top and looking down, it's so clear as a like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But at that moment, no matter what was going on, you don't have that information. So judging yourself for not knowing it in that moment, or making a different decision or making a better decision, it's really unfair to yourself, because there's no way you could have known that until after the fact.
With ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I always say,
no, we really are.
If you talk to yourself, I mean, quite honestly, if we talk to our friends the way we talk to ourselves, sometimes they wouldn't be our friends. So it was like,
right. No, right. Yeah, we're definitely our harshest critic. And that is something that I think a lot of us, that is relatable for so many pet parents and so many people in life, honestly. Like every aspect of life. So yeah, I think bucket lists are really great to do. I mean, to be honest, one of the biggest things I think can help counteract anticipatory grief is to focus on being present and in the moment. And so I think bucket lists help you do that. You plan for this event that you want to do with your pet, or that you think that they'd love. And so you get to be present in that moment when you're there with them at that beach, you're connecting with them, whatever you're doing. Me too. I really love that. I think bucket lists are a really great way to help counter anticipatory grief.
I'm going to New Orleans for the holidays, and my best friend's daughter is, her granddaughter is absolutely attached to their family dog. I mean, they go everywhere together. They do everything together. The dog sleeps in her bed. It's her guardian. And we're going to make a fun evening out of making clay pots that we can put,
I love,
you know, she can paint. We can put them on the Christmas tree. And she's too young to really understand that you see the big dog and we're coming into the roundup here.
Yeah.
I think it's really something. I don't like leaving kids out of this, because they're the ones that are, let me be clear, is not leaving them out of anticipatory grief. You don't want to just dampen their whole world with something that's really hard to understand, but you can do things for them that help them, that when that time comes, they have things to fall back on, like little mementos and
Yeah, and
memorial things that, you know, in the moment when it happens, it's you're going to be dealing with a whole different set of circumstances.
absolutely. And I think you actually touched on something that is really helpful for kids. And you guys are just automatically doing it. You probably already know, but you know, art and expressing yourself and expressing your love and letting kids like write their dog a letter, how much they love them, draw their dog, like, or the cat, just express it with art, make a clay paw print of your cat or your dog or whatnot. That kind of stuff really is really therapeutic for children that may be experiencing things like anticipatory grief and not really recognize it yet, or that are going through pet loss grief. And so I love the idea of the clay paw print because that's another thing. The mementos really, you're right, they mean a lot to them afterwards. I was just going to share a story about this weekend. So I also do work part-time. I do a little bit of hospice and end of life care over the weekends. And one of the things that a family did this weekend when I was working with them was they had their children, which were probably between ages of 6 and 10. They each had a drawing that they brought to the pet, that they showed how much they loved them. We were about to say goodbye, and then they also had their pet's favorite like toy with them that they put right next to her head. And it was just such a like a thoughtful way,
I
allowing them to
think
be
that's
part of the
super
process.
important, is that if they're allowed to be part of that process, I think you've at least got, you know, meeting them somewhere in the middle and not some mysterious thing. There's a friend of mine who's
Yeah.
a veterinarian who does the at-home service, and she said kids are just amazing, you know, and she said that they you know, it made her start thinking about language and the language you use. And she had euthanized
Yeah.
the dog, and the whole family's around. The little girl is there, and she put her stethoscope on and she said, "She's gone." And she noticed that
Yeah.
the little girl went over to her mom and went, "No, she's not. She's still right here." And it was like, okay, we need to maybe think
Yeah.
about, you know, because you don't think,
Yeah.
we as adults, we know what the language
Right.
means, but the kids, you have to,
Yeah.
one was around medicine, and and this
Yeah.
is not anything to do with death. It was about giving medicine, but she said you have to be careful because we tell kids drugs are bad, and so now we're giving our dog drugs.
Right.
Why does the dog have drugs? And
Right.
isn't that bad? And it just really opened my world up a little bit on the,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think certainly, you know, like communicating with them a lot, they're very literal and they've never been through the experience before. So they don't know, you know, they don't know. And we've come up with a lot of ways to try to talk. We talked about this before. We've come up with a lot of ways to try to talk about a pet
mm-hmm.
passing, about a pet dying, about death and humane euthanasia, and really ways that kind of gloss over it because it can be painful for people to hear those words and to mention those words. And we talked a little bit about this idea of really, you know, wanting to change the culture around death in the US towards something that maybe helps make death a more beautiful process for people to go through, you know, like a saying goodbye, like an honoring this pet, and not making it as dark and you know, as dark as we feel that it is. And it's because our grief is so wrapped up in it, of course. But we've talked about with end of life care, if we can try to have this idea of trying to make it this beautiful goodbye to my best friend, you know, if we can do that. Now there's always situations where the pet's not doing well, we have to make an emergency situation, and those are really hard to find the beauty in it, although I can, you know, saying goodbye to your pet. But we talked a little bit about that, about sometimes saying goodbye can be beautiful. And I do think that recognizing that is okay. It's okay. It's not more, you know, morbid. It is okay to say that, because really this gift, humane euthanasia, is a gift which we can give a pet that that is suffering. And I'm so, so
Oh my
thankful we have that.
gosh.
I
Yeah.
just, as a clinician, like I can't imagine if we weren't allowed to help a pet that is suffering or about to suffer, if we couldn't help them pass, like, my heart is like shattered just thinking about that. But we're just so lucky being able to do that and being able to plan it in a way, or at a place, if you can do it at home, like we've talked about, if you're able to plan it in a way that can make it as peaceful as possible for that pet, and then that could be beautiful. Maybe something
Absolutely.
really nice
And
about that. But
we in
um,
best friends have
yeah,
gotten to, we have a cemetery on site, and we do placements, and we
yeah,
do a monthly blessing, and we do an annual blessing of the animals, and honor the pets, uh, personal pets, but also some of the animals that have passed at the sanctuary. And we decided a really long time ago, to make this a celebration of life, because all
yeah,
of those guys gave such a contribution. It's like honoring their contribution to, I had there's one particular cat that, greeted people constantly on tours and changed people's minds about, cats in his particular situation where he had some hind end paralysis. And there was a lady there that, I
yeah.
remember walking in, and she was like, why would you even keep him alive? Why? I don't understand. This seems so cruel. And I said, I know, I understand. I
Yeah.
said, why don't you sit down with him, and I'm going to give you this wand. And she starts playing with him with his wand. And I came back through, and she goes, thank you for saving his life. Oh my God, I'm so happy to have met him, because he got around just fine. It just
Oh,
looked a little funky and
yeah,
weird, but he was living his best life.
yeah,
So to me, when he passed
yeah,
away, he might have transformed the minds of 30,000 people, right? And so we decided it's not a sad thing he left. Let's celebrate all of the lives he touched. And that's our guys too, our
yeah.
personal pets.
Patty, you're also getting a couple of comments here. So Roxanne says, guilt is horrible. We all feel that with or we feel that with our senior pet. My girl is having dementia right now, and the guilt is killing me. I don't know how to help her with this one. Um, that one's
You are not.
Roxanne. You are certainly not alone with that. I was just going to say, yeah, Patty, have you had a pet that's
I
had
have
dementia?
not. I have not in all
It's
my years. No, although not that I knew of, right? Because I do think that
right.
sometimes,
Yeah.
we see our renal cats all the way through, if they're willing to deal with fluids, right? So we're
Yeah.
not interested
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
if you're gonna alligator roll and freak out, and it's not worth that. And I think, I would imagine that at some
Right.
point with our renal kitties, there's some particular dementia that has crept in. One of the things, if I want to quantify it as that, one of the things that we did do was create things that were from her past that she enjoyed, that she may have forgotten
Mhm.
that she enjoyed, whether it was cat grass or
Right.
certain types of catnip toys. And you could see like the little lights go on for a minute that gave just a little spark of joy.
Yeah.
Like you could see that little spark of joy.
Yeah.
But that would be it. Everyone else, no. I'm so sorry. I have not experienced
Yeah.
that.
Oh no, I mean, like at some point you
Exactly.
will have one, because animals are living longer than ever now, and so that's just the brain health, and dementia is something that really does come up for a lot of older animals. And Dr.
Thank
H
you.
1106 bought us a badge too. Thank you guys so much. You guys are the best. But I was going to say for Roxanne that doggy dementia is one of the toughest diseases to have to make that decision for, because a lot of times what happens is their brain will go, and their personality, the things that they used to love, their ability to bond with you or interact with you, starts going away as well. But you can still have a pet that can walk, can eat, can drink, and can kind of go through the motions for the most part. So you're looking at this pet that was, once it gets severe, that was like a shell of themselves. and you're really not sure when to make the call. And so doggy dementia to me is one of the most difficult diseases to actually make the decision to humanely euthanize them, because you'll still have a pet that kind of physically looks for the most part okay, but they may not really have any
Well,
enjoyment
could
left in
this
their
also
life.
be, Dr.
um,
Monica? Could it be just like with humans, the actual mechanics of the body want to live, but the mind doesn't really know that the quality is diminished with what they found enjoyable? Like,
um, Yeah, well, yeah, of course. Yes, that's a really great way of putting it. Yeah, so their body, if their other organs and skeleton
mhm.
can still function, they will still function. And then, but their brain obviously is not allowing them to connect with the person they want to connect with so badly, to really recognize, they're
Going
just
through the
kind of like
motion.
go down to routines. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I had a
Exactly.
question for
So
you
that was
that
really well said.
is, from
Yeah.
your perspective, especially with all the animals that you work with and people, um, when you're living in this state of anticipatory grief, I've always been of the mind to try to keep the anxiety, my own anxiety, low, without being a
Yeah.
weirdo, right? Because where your audio and video aren't matching up, and then your animal's looking at you going, okay, cray cray, what's up? Because you're
Yeah.
smiling, but I can feel the tension coming through. How
Right.
do you navigate through that? Because I've had a horrible diagnosis delivered to me on my pets, and I've cried and cried and held them and cried, and then I wonder, oh my gosh, I'm being so selfish because I'm stressing them out, and they don't know why. They don't know why I'm so
Right.
sad. So
Right.
how do you mitigate
Yeah.
that?
So like break out of like the anxiety that you can feel when you're actually going through anticipatory grief. That's a really great question. I really think there's a couple of things that can help with that. I think one of
Mm.
them is setting some perspective. And this is almost like a it's almost like a I'm gonna say like being doused in like ice water for a second and being like, okay, like I get it, but one of the reasons why our relationships with pets is so special is that we don't have them for forever, right? They don't live, we usually outlive them. And so that's what causes the anxiety, but that's also what makes that relationship so precious and so sweet. And so I really do think having this perspective, like when I think of Orwell, who I've only had him for 3 years, I adopted him when he was 12, uh, or 12 and a half. But when I've only had him for 3 years, but when I think about him, he brings so much joy to my every single day life. I can't imagine my life without him. Like it hurts to think about it. So every day I wake up, and he's got really severe heart disease. Already he's got some mobility issues. He doesn't know he has these things. He feels amazing. But I know, and I know because I've seen a lot of pets that had these things, that I probably don't have much more than 6 to 12 months with him, right? And that breaks my heart because he brings joy to me every single day. And one of the things that kind of helps center me and just puts it back into perspective is that I'm
Right.
not guaranteed. I'm not guaranteed any day with him. Like I wasn't even guaranteed the last 3 years with him. So every day and every moment that I wake up, my job is to be as intentional as possible in connecting with him and being present and designing my day so that I do things that I love, taking care of myself as well, so that I can take care of him and connect with him as much as possible. But really just kind of focusing in on this idea that I wasn't guaranteed any time with him. And so every single day that I have it is just a joy, and it's just like this gift that I have. So remembering that it's just a gift that you are currently have them there in your life. And so that makes me just appreciate them the more. So that perspective shift, which is kind of like being like slapped in the face with it,
Right.
with the thing that you don't want to admit. I think that could be helpful. And then one of the things that Dr. Katie Lawler always talks about, but I think is just brilliant, is focusing on being present. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
in that like anxiety kind of spot, be like, well, what can I do right now? I can't control that future that I'm going to have without this pet. but I can control right now. So like, what if we go for a walk together and I spend time and I just make this about us instead of, letting myself spiral into that place. But I think those two things can be really, really powerful. And certainly
Yes.
talking about it. We have, we have so if you guys are interested, we have Pet Loss Community, which is a group that actually Dr. Katie Lawler co-founded with myself and
I
another
love you
veterinarian,
all,
Dr.
by
Lisa
the
Littman, who's
way.
amazing. And oh, thank you. But if you go to petlosscommunity.com, we have we have a free resource for people experiencing anticipatory grief. But two, we also have group support. You can join our community, and we have groups every single month where you can talk about the feelings you're experiencing and understand you're not alone. And then also hear other people talk about their experience. And it's just really therapeutic. Like it can be really helpful too in helping break that if you're finding yourself really experiencing that, which so many people do. And Patty, I don't know about you, but when did you first hear about anticipatory grief
Maybe
with
2 years ago, and I'm
yeah,
years
like
old.
it's
Um, I and I and and
I heard
it
you
was
say
it was
30. I'm
a
kidding.
big aha for me. One of the
Yeah.
things that you just touched on, uh, Dr. Monica, is knowing who to talk to. You know, you have these groups.
Oh yeah.
Dr. Katie and I were having a discussion not too long ago, and it was funny because this psychologist one time told me, she said, stop going to the hardware store for grapefruit. Like, stop
Yeah.
trying to talk
Yeah.
about
I
these
know.
things with the people who just aren't capable of having that conversation with you.
Yeah.
Love them in a different capacity, but stop going to them for this and then getting angry because they don't get it. So knowing
Right.
who you can talk to is super important, in my opinion. And also, pet loss community resources like the ones you guys have put together, that's a great opportunity in, like you said so perfectly, knowing you're not alone. You're not alone, and that lots of people
Yeah.
have these feelings. That's something that took me a long time to
Yeah.
understand. I used to think I was, in a rowboat out in the Hudson, you know, all by myself.
Right. Right, all alone on this journey. No, absolutely. You brought up such a good point, and I love that analogy of not going to the hardware store for a grapefruit, because it's true. Like in the holidays, it intensifies that because you're showing up. You're going to family Thanksgiving, and you want your brother who you love so much to understand what you're going through, and you want to share with them, but he doesn't have the capacity to understand, or he's not there emotionally or able to really support you like you need, but you want him to be the one to do it. But instead, if you can just be like, all right, I recognize I love my brother. That's not like, I don't think he's capable of giving me what I need right now. What I really need is to be surrounded by people that get it and that can support me. And going to the friend that that understands it or is dealing with it as well and can kind of help you instead. But I really love that, and Dr. Lawler really does kind of like hammer that in. She's like, don't look to get the support from them. Just get what you can and just go to the right place. But I love that point,
Thank
Patty.
you.
That's a really
Like,
good
you
point.
get so many
And
calls on your time too. Like, oh, but we're
yeah,
all hanging out. We'd love to see you. And I've learned this past year some
right.
really good things that you can put in your toolbox, that are like, oh, I would
Yeah,
love to come. Can I let you know the day of? Bring your own car
right.
so that you can leave if your
Yeah,
feelings are too intense or you need to get back home to your pet, so that you build for yourself some safety
right.
escapes, or just kind
Yeah,
of, the whole thing is you're trying to buy presents. There's all of a sudden a ton of activities and gatherings and celebrations, but you're also navigating through your feelings during this time, and you're feeling anxious. It's like I call it the 9-layer bean dip. I mean, you just start to adding up to where you feel like you're in a stack of goop. So any place where
yeah,
you can claim for yourself some escape routes or some opportunity to alleviate some of that pressure, then you're going to have a better holiday season.
Yeah, no, those are all really great. I think it's so funny some of the things that you mentioned. I'm like, I've been doing those for a long time, so a, I'm like an introvert to the core. So social gatherings, I can only handle like a small amount. And so I'm always like, all right, well, I have my car there. So if it gets too much, if I'm too overwhelmed, I can go or whatever. But no, it's funny. I do think all those things are really smart, and they're okay to do. It's okay. It's okay to set a boundary and to recognize that maybe you need a little more TLC and to put yourself first, even though there's expectations for you to be there during the holidays and to stay not just for the dinner, but then also for the special, thing that you're doing afterwards. You can say, guys, I love it. I'm going to be here for this, and I'm not going to be here for the second part. We got to go somewhere
My
else or something like that, whatever you need to do.
family
So
is
I
masterful
do
with
think
guilt.
those are great points.
Guilt. Oh my God. I grew up with so much guilt. So it's, and Edna, this might be her last Christmas. It's like, okay,
Oh yeah.
so let
Yeah.
me, and
Yeah.
one thing that I did start thinking about was, okay, so it may be Aunt Edna's last Christmas, maybe my last Christmas. Like, we don't know anything, but if that's a bone,
Right.
if that's a point that, is going to cause some kind of rift with the rest of your family, um, the day before, or the week before, take Aunt Edna out to lunch and have one-on-one time. Do you have to be at
Yeah.
the event?
Yeah.
No, not necessarily. So there's
Right.
a lot of creative problem solving you can do around, all of these pulls on your mental and emotional space during this time, especially if you're anticipating something going on.
Carolyn Wagon also said, I think when you were talking, Patty, she said the point of talking to those who understand your grief is important. Those who don't understand will never do it. Um, you could talk to the wall and get more compassion. And I think so. She's completely agreeing with the point you're bringing up. And I think that's a great way to put it, Carolyn.
Yeah.
It is really important
Like,
to make
just
sure you're talking
also
to
found
people that can
it
help
extra exhausting
understand.
to be not only sad, but now angry because somebody is not getting it or giving me what I need, when really I started thinking about it, I'm imposing on them to give me something they're not capable of doing. They're just not
Yeah.
there at that
Yeah.
point. They're not they don't have anything to tap into. So I'm also putting them in that position.
Right.
I'm working on the more compassionate
Right.
Patty, who it's a work in progress, because I would just get so mad and be like, why can't you? You need to love something besides
Yeah.
yourself, But
Yeah. Well, I think too, like one of the places where it even gets harder is if you have like a partner that doesn't
oh
understand your
wow.
grief. Like we have people, pet parents that come to pet loss community and they'll just be like, I just don't feel like, my partner gets it. And it's the same kind of thing where they may not have had that same bond that that person had had with that pet. Or maybe they just grieve in a different way and you're both going through your own grief and you need support. So come to our support, we've got support groups and one-on-one that we do too at pet loss community, but you just find your support elsewhere or find your friends that can be there for you and get it, like understand what you're going through. So but yeah, certainly with family it's tough. With a partner that you live with, that's really tough, or a partner or someone that you're dating, that's really tough. They don't understand it. um, and
Yeah.
and sometimes they're just not
and
there,
and I think one of the
to at that
coolest,
level.
greatest things you can do for a friend is to say, let's go grab a cup of coffee, tea, and I want you to tell me all about it. One of it, okay, so I
Yeah.
am your fraternal twin, Dr. Monica. I am
Okay. Yes, I
the
see it. Uh-huh.
extroverted people pleaser. Yes. So we
Oh
are
yes.
two
Okay.
sides of the same coin. And I've had to work on this the last couple of years, especially diving deeply into this particular area of work. And that is, I am not going to try and take your pain away. You do someone a
Yeah.
disservice. I didn't realize I was doing not only them a disservice, but me a disservice by trying to take their pain away. First of all, I can't take it away. And second of all,
Right.
sometimes people just need to bleed the line. They need to go through all of the feels, all of the emotions, the guilt, and they just need you to listen and be compassionate and let them do it without trying to take it away from them. It's very hard to do because you want to say,
It
oh my God, no, you would
is.
never do anything that would ever hurt, or, but you have to let them process. And so actually you're committing to doing what you're asking someone else to do for you, and it's harder than it looks for us to
Oh
listen
yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
You don't want someone to sit and berate themselves, but you realize that they just needed to get it out. Yeah,
Oh, totally. I know. Just
it's a
being someone, just
gift.
listening is such a, it is. Yeah, it really is. Just being there, just listening to what they have to process and whatnot. And I talk a lot of times when I talk to my best friends and stuff, just letting me talk through
Yeah.
something is just how I process stuff, and so that'd be super helpful for a lot of people for
I
sure.
have
So
a lady
yeah,
I work with. Her
good point.
name's Colleen Ellis with Two Hearts Pet Loss, and she's a hoot and a holler. She said that when you're feeling low and you've lost, one of your little ones, when you go to Starbucks or wherever, they ask you your name, give them your pet's name. And it was the cutest thing. It was
Aw,
like, and have them yell that name across the restaurant, across the coffee shop. And it
that's
kind of gives you
cute.
a little twinkle
That's
and a
cute.
sparkle to just go, yeah, my name's Sadie, or whatever it is. Twinkle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're, do we
Um,
still have a little bit of time?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. It's
A
at
little
3 o'clock right now. I
late?
think we started
Because
a little bit
I
late.
had a
Yeah.
question for you,
Um,
being a vet who will travel and do in-home euthanasia. Um, we were talking about this between us, but last week, and it was um, bigger in some areas than not. I feel very fortunate to be close to the sanctuary and have vets that will come to my home. My daughter's a veterinarian,
right.
but what if you're, in an area that does not have that, or, how do you plan? Like, is it good to just have a plan? And I'm not trying to be maudlin here, but if you're in that state of anticipatory grief and something's coming down the pike, is it good for you to just have that plan and then put it aside so that you're not scrambling at the last minute? And if so,
Yeah.
as a veterinarian, what would be in that plan?
Yeah. No, it's a really good question. I think certainly because we talked about how the holidays
Mhm.
in general are just really hard. A lot of people lose their pets during the holidays. We lose a lot of good cats and dogs during the holidays. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to it seems to be like if you work at a vet clinic, you're
Mhm.
always just like, yeah, we seem to say goodbye to more animals during the holidays. So I think it's a really great question to ask. Yes, I do think trying to create an end of life plan for your pet, no matter where they are, and having an idea of what that might look like is a really good idea. Um, and so you can, in order to do that, you want to talk to your vet and find out what's available in your area. If they have a at-home service, a lot of vet clinics, like when I in Charlotte at my last hospital that I worked at, we would go to some of our really good clients' homes. We'd go to their houses if we could do it. It all just depended on how busy the day was or whatnot, but we would sometimes go. So some vet clinics, maybe your vet offers that, they'll do that, and they'll be the ones that'll come to your house. Other times you have at-home euthanasia services in the area. There is one called Gift of Peace that was in Fort Mill, South Carolina. The doctor there did an amazing job. There's Lap of Love, who I work with currently. They're amazing. A lot of people have great experiences with them. So being aware of who is around your area and even calling them and saying, hey, like, how quickly do I have to make a decision when I use you guys? Like, what
Mhm.
does the process usually look like? That can help reduce your anxiety as well. I also tell people, like, during the holidays, if you have a senior pet, just get them into the
Ah,
vet, like get them in now before the holidays start, because just get them looked at. Like I swear it will help reduce like anxiety. You can't 100% prevent everything just by us looking at them, right? There could be things on the inside I can't see during my exam, but at least let me get my stethoscope on them. Let me look at them. Let me just make sure things check out well. Maybe I'll run blood work, senior wellness blood work on them to make sure that looks good. But just get that check in before the holidays start, and that might give you some more confidence and a little bit reduced
that's a
anxiety. I think
great
that's
point.
certainly worth doing. Um, but yeah, I do think that like having an end of life plan is really important. So talking to your vet about what that might look like, deciding what that might look like for your pet. If your pet already has diseases and you have an idea that they're kind of their quality of life, they've got
Mhm.
good quality of life now, but you're not sure what it's going to be, you should start filling out a quality of life scale. You should also, and I would do that weekly or, every few days, depending on where you are, like with your pet's quality of life. Like if you're really concerned about it,
Do you have a
I might do it
downloadable
daily with
resource that
them.
people could use that?
I, I'm like, I'm gonna get one for you guys. But yeah, I do. I have a course that has it in my senior dog thrive course that I have online. But if you just go on to the internet and you type in
Mhm.
dog or cat quality of life scale, there's one called which is like HHHHMM. And that's a very, very
Okay.
simple one that has just 7 questions, very easy to fill out. And basically, if your dog has a number, you assign a number to each little level. And if your dog has a number above 30, it's a good quality of life. If it's below that number, you need to be thinking about uh, humane euthanasia possibly, or talking about that with your vet. Can they still do it? And start writing that stuff down and start quantifying quality of life now and talking to your vet about what they think too. There's vet techs and like the receptionists at vet
So
clinics. They're so
perceptive.
good. They see so much. They talk to so many owners. Yeah, they're so amazing at helping with that stuff too, and have such valuable information. But um, certainly starting to think about that now. That's a really good idea. The end of life plan, having a plan for what I would ideally look like for you once you get the information, and then having an emergency backup. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to hang on to a pet that is in a critical condition because we're waiting for the
Mm.
at-home vet, the in-home euthanasia vet to come to our house. If your pet is in a critical condition and not doing well and possibly suffering, and you're at an animal hospital, for example, and there's there's not a good prognosis, not the vet's recommending humane euthanasia, then you likely want to consider doing it then, because we don't want
Right.
to take them home to suffer and wait for them to get better, but they're only going to get worse. So
Well,
just
one
to
other
keep that in mind
thing,
as
thank
well.
you for that, because I think that's a good
Yeah.
reminder for preparedness actually removes a lot of the anxiety. If you And so one
Yeah.
of the things
Yeah.
that you and I were talking about was preparation for holiday travel.
Oh, oh yeah. No, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, holiday travel, it depends on what you're doing, right? Are you bringing your older pet with you? Are you leaving them at home? You know what to do. And Patty, sorry, I just wanted to,
Sure.
there was a couple great comments here. Carolyn Wiggins, anyone says, I did quality of life notes for Charlie the cat at work when the owners couldn't make the decision of letting him cross over, and it helped them with the difficult choice. Thank you so much for
Yes.
sharing that, Carolyn. That's really helpful to know. That's actually a really great thought for vets to do. Stuck in bed too. Sometimes I'm stuck in bed as well. That was their username, but they say have the number for in-home care handy. Maybe even let them know you think you will be needing services beforehand. That's super helpful. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Sure.
I think those are the
For
comments that I have there.
sure.
So just wanted to chat those people out. But yeah, so if planning for the holiday travel, plan it now. Like plan it a few weeks ago. If you're not sure if you're going to head out of town, one of the things you have to do is start making phone calls now. For older pets, I always suggest having an in-home pet sitter that you trust come over, and hopefully someone that you know and that your pet knows. And if not, have the introduction done sooner rather than later, so they kind of understand the way things work at your house. You can certainly board older pets. I just think that it's so hard because a lot of times pets that are boarded, there's
Yes.
no one there at night, right? So we had I don't even want to tell you guys the stories that we have. I used to work at a clinic that was attached to a boarding facility. So I highly don't recommend boarding senior pets. I
If you
highly recommend having someone come
can,
to your
yeah,
house if you
because
can.
also you
Or,
don't know what level
yeah,
of anxiety is going. to elevate whatever condition your pet might have.
Yeah,
Some animals are like, yeah, I can go boarding and they don't care, but most of the times it smells different. It's not home. It can be disorienting and it can be anxiety producing. I mean, clearly, if you don't have a
it
choice,
is. It really
then you
can.
do what you do. But
Yeah,
there are some drawbacks for sure.
it's certainly, I mean, there really are. And at home, I mean, I tell people this, like, you get your little in-home cameras and tell the pet sitter you have them. But there's nothing that helps reduce anxiety like being able to click on your camera and see your pet just sleeping there quietly and
I
stress-free, like
have
when you're gone
cameras.
for the holidays.
Oh, go ahead.
Always tell, yeah, I mean, always tell your pet sitters that you have them. But man, those are just so like, you're like, all right, they're doing their normal thing.
It's a total stress
This is,
decreaser.
this is okay.
My friend who just left town, she's like, I can watch her see, get up to go pee, go back, get a bite to eat, come back. But I have to
Yeah.
laugh. I have cameras on my horses, and my horse sitter knows that I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
And it's so funny because I think she thinks that's all I do is watch those cameras. And so
Is
she'll
watch
send
them.
me little
Yeah.
notes and she goes, this morning, if you saw when I moved the water bucket, and I'm thinking, oh, honey, I'm not.
You're like, I'm not watching this like
But it's
TV.
cute.
Yeah, yeah, that's so funny. Yeah,
That's a
no,
great
absolutely. And
idea.
let me just plug. Yeah, I really do think that can
Mm-hmm.
help reduce anxiety for a lot of people. Um, so doing that, and then certainly if you're traveling out of town with them, like get your medications refilled, call them in for a refill a week, 10 days ahead of time so that you guys have it ready, have everything packed. Bring their dog food. Don't just rely on buying something when you get there. Like keep everything the same as much as possible. Talk to your vet about like there's a lot of anxiety like anxiety chews or whatnot that can help. Like I really like Composure by Better Science, which can help reduce anxiety for a lot of pets. It's pretty safe for them. There's a lot that you can do, but certainly getting prepared. If you are traveling somewhere with your senior pet, have an idea of where the closest vet clinic is wherever you're going. Like where's the closest ER, where's the closest vet clinic? And like I said, get your pet in now to the vet before you leave for your travels, because it just really helps reduce anxiety. And just for a checkup, get
Yeah.
them checked out. It'll help you.
And one of the things that I
for you.
always
Yeah.
I learned from a veterinarian years and years and years ago, and that was have them look at your whole animal. It's
Yeah.
you just wouldn't believe how easy it is to get caught up on one little aspect or one, his foot is doing something funny and then the whole visit goes by and you haven't done the whole checkup, because sometimes there's a little key indicator in there that something could be a little bit off, that you could catch then, that doesn't catch you by surprise later.
Well, it was so good talking to you today. I hope that it was a great conversation about anticipatory grief, and we can certainly talk more about it again if you want to go through more.
I really enjoyed my time with you. I knew the day we met, we were going to hit it off really well. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for bringing me into your world.
Yeah,
and all these fabulous people who joined us. That's really just warms my heart.
They're the best. I know. Thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate you. Let's see, Stuck in Bed says he's cute. Thank you. I think so too. Roxy says he looks like a Muppet. Roxy, you were right. He looks like Oscar the Grouch, like popped out of a trash can Muppet. All right, guys. It was great talking.
Sounds great, Dr.
I'll talk to you
Monica.
soon,
Thank you so much for all the work you do.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys. All right. Bye-bye.